So in section 3, technology and textile with responsibility, we have Ms. Anne Marr, Ms. Riko Sudo-san, and this section will be moderated by Mizuki Takahashi from Musics Foundation. So Anne is currently the course leader of the BA of Textile Design at Central St. Martin's and the Deputy Director of the Textile Future Research Center. Her research is exploring understandings and boundaries of different textile-based approaches to respond to society or urban needs to create more empathetic communities. Reiko is a professor at Tokyo Soki University, and she is also design director of Nuno Corporation, an innovative textile company in Tokyo. She concerns about recycling and upcycling of textiles and the environment effects of textile production. Mizuki Takahashi, Senior Curator of Musics Foundation. She was the founding curatorial staff member at Marr Art Museum in Tokyo and Senior Curator of Contemporary Art Center at Tower Mito during the years. She curated numerous transdisciplinary exhibitions addressing various artistic forms. May I now have Anne on the stage to share the presentation with us?
Hello, can you all hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this fantastic day. We had a great tour yesterday, and it's been an absolute pleasure meeting everybody. And I hope I can contribute something to the spinning and the weaving of the discussions today. So I'm currently working at Central St. Martin's. I'm an educator, researcher, and also textile designer. And my talk will portray a kind of group of different researchers from the University of the Arts London, and it's a Textile Future Research Center. One second. Sorry. Here we go. Okay. So this presentation will portray and discuss current approaches to textiles and responsibility at different researchers from the Textile Future Research Center, TFRC, based at the University of the Arts London. TFRC is a center for textile design research which spans across Chelsea College and Central St. Martin's. It consists of 2 directors, 5 lead researchers, and 6 associate researchers, as well as providing a supervision for 6 PhD candidates. The center emerged from the Textile Future Research Group, which was originally founded in 2007 to establish a new community of practice across the UAL. All TFRC members have developed their research from an art and design context rather than being trained in textile, technology, or humanities research. In the context of this presentation, it is therefore important to note that the University of the Arts is not equipped with a high-tech textile laboratory of the caliber of a large engineering faculty. In order to innovate new textile outcomes, TFRC researchers seek collaborations with external partners, as well as developing new critical textile approaches through future design scenarios, community engagement, and material prototyping. And there are currently 3 TFRC research platforms. And I'm going to explain more in depth about each of the platforms. It's just to give you an overview for now. So we've got the Circular Transitions in TET, which stands for Textiles, Environment, and Design, developing sustainable fashion textile production and design methods, investigating how to design for a circular economy. We've got Urban Fabric, investigating the connections between materials and society to develop socio-responsive textile solutions that are empathetic and promote local ownership. Weaving Futures, exploring the development of industrially produced on-loom finishing processes through the use of innovative jacquard weave designs, as well as sustainable and smart yarn and structure combinations. And at Central St. Martin's itself, we also have the Design and Living Systems Lab led by Professor Coral Collet, pioneering innovative ecological design and fabrication models, working with both existing natural nature and new programmable nature. And I think what is interesting is looking at the talks we had earlier today, there's a lot of different parts coming back from earlier talks that actually kind of resonate with what we're looking at the moment. So this section is all about responsibility, textiles, and technology. And I was just thinking, what do we actually mean by responsibility and textile design? So just looking back a tiny little bit, textile, women, and technology have been intrinsically linked for many decades, impacting on economies, the environment, as well as rapid social change, bringing new advances to us, but also creating new challenges and responsibilities. For example, during the Industrial Revolution, steam-powered looms enhanced the production times of fabrics, whilst impacting dramatically on the environment, as well as industrial working conditions and a drop in demand for traditional textile craft skills. At the turn of the 20th century, female consumers were already embracing new smart textiles, such as electric corsets, and we also got radioactive ski wear, were hailed for their medical benefits at that time. In the 1920s, the role of women in textiles also changed from producer to developer, designer, and saw German Bauhaus designer Annie Albers, as well as French designer Sonia Delaunay in the driving seat, designing new materials and pioneering technologies. Over the past 20 years, new digital and smart technology, as well as biotechnologies and future crafts, have all led to rapid changes in textile production, and as a result, raised new questions about the responsibilities of designers. And these are just the kind of focus areas for Textiles Future Research Center. So closed-loop technology, biotechnology, digital jacquard technology, and socio-responsive technology, which I will all explain in case studies in a second. Sadly, the textile industry today has become unsustainable. Western consumers buy now 60% more clothing today than 10 years ago. By 2019, there is projected to be 35.4 billion pounds of annual textile waste. At the same time, 70% of all industrial water pollution comes from the textile industry, and the list goes on. Today, humanity uses the equivalent of 1.6 planets to provide the resources we absorb, and this is the picture I've got up here. This means that now the Earth takes 1 year and 6 months to regenerate what we use in a year. Our planet is already in crisis, and textile responsibility must address urgent questions about the actions caused by inventing and producing textile materials and new making processes. Therefore, we must ask difficult questions addressing our textile responsibilities. What actions are the materials and the making processes responsible for? But also, what kind of cultural and ethical information does this material stand for? Sustainable design responsibilities can only be successful if they holistically address the following parameter: environmental, economic, and social impact. More specifically, sustainable textile design needs to look at whether materials cause harm to the environment or the body, and how does their production and distribution affect the new economic opportunities, as well as enhancing human skills and abilities, and how do they promote well-being for diverse future communities. The status quo is deeply rooted in our economic distribution systems, and we heard about that earlier as well. Sustainable fashion pioneer Fletcher observes, this is a quote, "The domination of consumerist fashion means that alternatives are squeezed out. Other options seemed unworkable because cultural conditions create desire for the current setup, and alternatives from outside appear inferior, impractical, and unattractive." At TFRC, we are applying holistic design research approaches, and we are developing responsive textiles through multiple lenses. As a result, we are including a much wider pool of stakeholders before, during, and after the design process. We collaborate with creative disciplines and involve scientists, manufacturers, engineers, retailers, psychologists, local communities, politicians, and journalists to drive this innovation. So I'm going to talk a bit more in depth now about different case studies and things, current research that we actually conduct. And I'm starting with the textile environment design or circular transitions research platform, which is led by Professor Becky Early and Kate Goldsworthy. And they have developed TETS-10, a generic toolbox operating around 10 strategies to navigate the complexity of sustainable issues, ranging from design for cyclability to design activism. And they are kind of boxed with lots of different methods to different themes that you can actually work with as a company, as an educator, or as a designer. TED currently investigates how to design for a circular economy by exploring the potential for short life versus long life garments in the Mistra Fashion project funded by the Swedish government. We were talking about fast versus slow earlier, and there's lots of different kind of theories how to apply that. The project will include the development of prototypes, recommendations, guidelines, and tools for how to design for circularity within a context of speed. It promotes a more sustainable circular supply chain, as well as devising strategies to encourage sustainable user behavior and increase user engagement and sustainable consumption. New here is the role of the textile designer as a communicator to bring together different strands from the supply chain in order to contribute to the overall vision of closing the material loop. Trash to Cash is, in Trash to Cash, the TED team is working directly with Nordic end product manufacturers in order to develop zero-waste textiles and fibers by utilizing paper and polyester waste materials. So rather than upcycling or recycling, looking at a full circle of production so that you can actually reuse every single part of a textile product. The project's aim is to encourage better waste utilization and to be instrumental in the reduction of landfill waste. And if anybody's here particularly interested in this kind of field, we just had a big conference last week which is called Circular Transitions. And if you Google Circular Transitions and Chelsea College, you can find the program there. And I believe there was some more information about the program itself. Another platform we have at TFRC is the Weaving Futures. And this area is led by Philippa Brock. Working in collaboration with industry partners, Brock creates new knowledge and methods through the investigation, testing, and extending the boundaries of the industrial weaving processes and equipment. So Philippa works alongside UK-based textile mills. And her innovative digital textile research explores the capacity to create finishing processes, such as pleating and embroidery, directly through the weaving process on the loom. You can see some of her work here. So this is before it's actually taken off the loom and steamed, when it suddenly starts to get a new life and get some 3D textures and structures. Oops. Sorry. This reduces the number of manufacturing stages across the creation of the fabric, enhancing a more sustainable industrial production line. In Noble Textiles, Brock responded to Sir Aaron Klug's scientific findings on self-assembling structures, marrying scientific discovery to weave design. And you can see how the material suddenly gets a new life after it has been steamed. And this is all created just on the loom. There isn't any other process involved. Her latest project, Series 1580, Palimpsest, explores woven 3D structures enhanced through laser cutting, so working with laser cutting and weaving at the same time. The Urban Fabric Research Platform is led by myself, exploring new materials and processes with an emphasis on public spaces and community engagement. City surfaces are the interface of our daily life and therefore impact greatly on sustaining material, resources, as well as community well-being. Urban surfaces can communicate cultural capital to create meaningful local connections and social and economic empowerment for residents, finding a voice. The aim is to make a positive impact through design interventions, such as stimulating co-design and investigating design ownership through participatory design, enhancing pro-social interaction, promoting a sense of belonging, and increasing the cultural capital of residents, creating sustainable urban environments, and enhancing well-being through responsive surface materials. One of our projects, I'm just going to show you two at the moment, is the 6 Branch project. This is a collaboration between BA Textile Design students from Central St. Martin's and the Women in Hebron, a collective of 120 embroiderers based in the Hebron area of Palestine. The collective offers a vital opportunity for local women to generate their own income whilst raising a family. The 6 Branch project was initiated by funding member Naval Slemia and the TFRC researcher Linda Florence, who were eager for the collective to find new challenges for making and selling their products. 6 Branch is a platform for cultural exchange through textile design, celebrating the traditional embroidery skills and translocal co-design. The development of new ideas started as an open dialogue, with Slemia traveling to London to introduce the students and staff to the narrative of existing textile patterns and explain specific working methods. Originally, it was planned that London tutors would also travel to Palestine. However, due to the politically uncertain situation in the region, the visits had led to be postponed. Instead, Slemia had visited London 4 times, and her team has taken part in Skype calls with students to discuss the development of the work. The students created storyboards and color palettes inspired by traditional Palestinian patterns, and the design process was shared using collage, drawing, and stitch. And you can see her here talking to our students. They're both holding the same design that was made in Hebron in collaboration with her and her team. It's actually a map from the local area that has been translated into an embroidery pattern. Each side learned about the cultural and political and economic situation of their counterpart, creating a peaceful message about cultural exchange and shared responsibilities. Currently, 5 new Hebron interior products have been developed and will be for sale in 2017, promoting cultural understanding through embroidery. Material Boundaries is a project led by Rebecca Hoyes and myself, exploring where textiles end and ceramics begin. This led to a collection of new hybrid materials and a series of spatially applied textile designs. The project brings together recent material innovation, such as Kevlar, silica, and basalt yarns, and bonds with them with sustainable once-fired clay, which is a kind of recycled clay type. All textile materials were selected for their qualities of surviving 1,000 degrees during the kiln firing, and you can see some of our samples here in the kiln, before, and you can see after here as well. Unfortunately leading to many failed experiments, but eventually also new textiles, which combine both soft and hard qualities. A systematic combination of processes and materials eventually led to new semi-flexible ceramic textiles. Possible outcomes include playful hybrid knots and prototypes for external urban use. This project illustrates the responsibility of textiles to constantly invite open-ended research to unlearn existing knowledge and risk failure. Tacit textile knowledge, something Janice talked earlier, is built through active engagement with materials, and there is a need for designers to acquire material knowledge through direct handling and experimentation. Interdisciplinary collaborations bring opportunities to develop new, sustainable material qualities, as well as reapplying and preserving craft techniques to stimulate their potential for future technologies and craft innovation. And if anybody's interested in finding out a little bit more about this project, we have just published a paper in the Journal for Textile Research and Practice, which is literally just out now. And I think the hard copy will be out in January, but it's already online, I think, since last week. And last but not least, I'm coming to the Design and Living Systems Lab, which was set up by Professor Carole Collet in 2014 to explore biological sciences through design to grow new design propositions that could facilitate the transition of the One Planet Living pledged by Horizon 2050. Carole's BioLace project explores the possibilities for new knowledge emerging from synthetic biology and the potential for future fabrication. Her reprogrammed nature approach focused on the reprogramming of living organisms to grow tailored and customized biosynthetic materials. BioLace explores the advantage of biological systems in terms of zero waste, minimum use of energy and materials, programming and engineering living organisms to grow tailored materials. Her speculative design scenarios transport us into the year 2040, where textiles meet farming. In Strawberry Noir, food production is combined with the growth of biomanufactured lace roots for the fashion industry. Mycelium Rubber from 2016 explores nature as a co-worker. Here the focus is on collaborating with living organisms, such as mycelium fungi, to naturally fabricate self-patterned rubber materials and products. And in Future Hybrids, Carole Collet has reimagined future fur production with the help of fungi, using nature as a model, translating natural behaviors and principles into product conceptualization and production. And you can see some of her examples here. Again, it's an interesting kind of crossover to Sputniko's idea of growing fur. This time it's grown by some very friendly fungi, as you can see here. So in conclusion, it is very difficult to predict exactly which technological changes will be most beneficial and which will be disruptive. Responsibility today can only be all-inclusive in order to develop a sensible and innovative approach to address the complex interrelationship between inheritable, social, economic, and sustainable futures. At TFRC, we embrace new technologies, and we embrace the responsibility to develop a critical and ethical understanding of how best to apply textiles and ensure they can contribute to shaping a truly inheritable future. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, please feel free to email me at any time. Thank you.
Okay. Hello, my name is Reiko Sudo. I'm very, very honored to be here. And thank you very much for inviting me here. And I had a lovely time yesterday to visiting the mills and spending time in a little bit of Hong Kong. And it was really wonderful. And it's one, well, yes, something missing. Yeah, it's really strange. Yeah, I think it's. Oh, yes, good. Okay, sorry. So I'm going to talk about textile in relation to the environment and the material we use. Since 1984, Nuno has designed and sold textile. Here is Nuno as it looks in 1984, full of indigo and unbleached fabrics. In 1996, we doubled the space of our main store. I run a textile company called Nuno. We work with 50 local weaving and dyeing workshops in Japan. From 2008, I became a design advisor to Japan's leading household company, Muji. My main focus at Muji is clothes and household textiles. In 2010, Muji agreed to do this fuku project. That word fuku means clothing in Japanese and also happiness in Japanese as well. When we collected customers' favorite old clothes to make ethanol and generate energy, we noticed that many of clothes were still perfectly wearable. This Muji project harks back to that tradition. So we gave the clothes a good washing and dyed them indigo or blue, known worldwide as Japan Blue. This gave them a new lease online. Strange. Japanese indigo dyeing was perfected some 500 years ago in the Edo era. And almost every town and village had its own koya, which means indigo dyer shop. All these products are priced the same, and we continuously sell out whatever we put in the store. Since starting the Fuku project in 2010, we've collected some 60 tons of clothes at 350 Muji shops. Strange, something wrong with the images. As a textile designer, I've been designing textile for over 33 years with my company Nuno, which means textile in Japanese. So far, we created nearly 2,500 textile. Among these, it's really strange, sorry. Is that okay? Just keep doing. I want to show you some of our more resourceful, reuseful designs, maybe not exactly green or always very eco. The bottom line is we just can't afford to be wasteful. The most obvious reuseful technique is simply to stitch, scrap together. From 1994, our 10-year anniversary, we set up a new brand named Nuno Oriori, which means in Japanese, including several variation or season or items, we are able to use all our remnants, regardless of contents and color, to make a variety of original patchwork scarves. Yes? Sorry. It's something. Yeah.
Specialist is going to help us.
Right.
Just one moment. Technical problem.
The change the display. This one is a display. Okay. Let me. Oh, good. Okay. Tote bag. Yeah, good. Tote bag. And cushions for this line. The next most obvious reuseful technique is needle punching, also called felting, simply roughing up fabric remnants so the fiber mesh and interlock. Here are two of our needle punch design, terrazzo felt Nuno color chips and terrazzo felt Nuno fabric. Other of our needle punch designs, such as Nuno tataki, means beat. So printed scraps as well as small bits of wool. Next, I want to show you some fabrics with distinctive threads, not that a small company like ours could develop such innovations of our own. Konnyaku is a food of like a jelly. It's a perennial yam, sometimes translated as a devil's tongue. So historically, it was also used to waterproof paper kimono called kamiko. And we at Nuno have used konnyaku gel to coat thread to make them stiff. To weave textile like tigi. Here, the lampshade made of this tigi fabric for the Mandarin Oriental Tokyo. Bashofu textile woven in Okinawa from banana fiber were long and presented as a treasured offering to the Ryukyu royal court. Even today, exquisite bashofu is still woven in Okinawa, although banana plant being lost to typhoon and urban growth. With the idea of reusing damaged plantains, in 1984, we collaborated on developing a process for dissolving basho fiber in an alkali solution and coated cotton thread with the gel. We created quite a number of Nuno bashofu fabric this way, completely different from traditional bashofu is the way they are produced with more of contemporary feel. On a trip to Amami near Okinawa Island to harvested basho plantain, I visited the Amami Weaving Research Center where a researcher told me about the type of mud dyeing that has been passed down there for over 1,000 years. The process uses pressing from the subtropical bush and native iron-rich mud. We decided to try it out on leftover Oshima tsumugi silk. But had a professional spinning mill do all the incredibly time-consuming work of rewinding bits of thread into boucle yarns and loop yarns. By combining these amami So Amami yarn with raw silk from Kiryu, north of Tokyo, where our Nuno Textile Center is located. We created these Ritex Oshima scarves. Also machine woven, the mud-dyed thread give each scarf a totally unique feel, very light, very natural. The fabric started as a failure. We were trying to weave a polyester taffeta, but kept tearing holes. When we got the idea to cut the damaged portions into long tape-like slit yarns. Tape twist fabric embroidered with these textile tapes has been used by architect Jun Aoki for his Louis Vuitton Aoyama boutique. Sorry. Here we used tape twist for some 3,000 air conditioning baffles on the ceiling. In the Showa Kinen Park Museum by architect Toyo Ito, no two baffles are the same, so they took 2 months to make and install. Based on this idea, we began looking into all sorts of different reject material. Here's a fabric woven with copper, telephone wire that's coated with anti-static polyurethane. At only 30 micron in diameter, it's hard to believe it's actually metal wire. For the warps, we used the fiber pro mix synthesized from milk casein and acrylic nitride. As the 1990s ended, a new era in textile began. We become more aware of our limited natural resources and our overuse of petroleum. Unlike plant and animal materials like cotton and wool, petroleum-based material cannot be grown. Around beginning of 2000, a new technology was invented for completely recycling petroleum polyesters and nylon. So we changed to this new system to help relieve Japan's dependence of fossil fuels. We originally developed a patented origami pleats technique in the 1990s. Fabric insert between two folded paper molds and heat set. It is really a very simple technique. From this lacy fabric, which we called tanabata, we created 40 lanterns and big tapestry for the International Intercontinental Hotel in Tokyo. Here's a textile we made for the facade of the Louis Vuitton Ginza boutique to create it. We held in-depth meetings with the architects and made full-scale models. Both origami pleats and tanabata rely on the unique ability of polyester to remember shapes when heated. With paper template, we are able to fold into the polyester-based fabric. We can also create wavy shapes and layers to reflect light. Here is a 7-meter light curtain for the restaurant John George in Tokyo. We took advantage of polyester's heat memory to create origami pleats and tanabata. But now a new process allows us to weave fold right on the loom without that template. This woven fabric, called polygamy, automatically shrinked into fold when put in hot water. Here are some polygamy light created in 2015 for the Oita Prefectural Art Museum. Sorry, this is really designed by architect Shigeru Ban. Oh, I'm sorry. So this next fabric reused feathers left over from pottery. In Japan, major charities who collect donations on the street often give out red or green lapel feathers, kind of like pink ribbons for breast cancer donations. So many companies in Japan deal in feathers, from whom we obtain dark-colored, heavily patterned feathers and suitable for dyeing. So most of these reject peacock, duck, pheasant, and guinea hens are from imported. Yeah? This one? Oh, I see. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. How do I this right now? Okay. So we selected the biggest, softest, most regular shapes, feathers, disinfected them, and snipped off the tough coat point one by one. Then insert them by hand between layers of sheer organza, stopping and restarting the loom each time. Our next reject material is byproducts of the silk reeling mill, called kibiso, the outermost tough protective layer of the cocoon. At 5,000 denier thick and too hard for industrial weaving, it has typically been used for animal feed as a great source of amino acid and protein, or discarded. At first, we are unable to make thread fine enough to be woven by automotive looms, so we asked retired women from the silk mill to weave it by hand. Rice straw left over after the harvest was traditionally used to make sandals called waraji in Japanese, which are still worn by kabuki actors and made by hand locally in Tsuruoka. So it seemed natural to combine two and produce waraji using kibiso. After several months of work developing thinner and thinner threads, we are now able to use kibiso in mechanized weaving and have created several new textile designs using this fascinating fiber. This year, I've been working with another silk byproduct, the last part of the thread excreted by the silkworm. One cocoon yields 1,300 meters of thread. The very last bit that sticks to the metal spinning rod is called ogarami choshi. It can be broken off in small flakes. So laying out these flakes by hand, like a mosaic, we can make beautiful membrane sheet. We are now exhibiting new works made from this ogarami choshi for the first time in New York at the Copperhead Smithsonian Museum, Design Museum. To my eye, they look something like Buddhist robes, kesa, robes worn by monks and nuns, embody a noble property, ideal of living lightly in the world. According to Buddhist tradition, when the Sakya prince renounced the palace to seek an answer to human suffering, he begged for food, wearing rags, scavenged from rubbish, piles, and ditches. Even from crematorium ground, the scraps of clothes were then washed and pieced together into a rectangular cloth to just cover the body, then dyed with tree roots and bark. In one sermon, the Buddha taught, "Never waste what has been given. Do not discard even the smallest scrap of cloth that can still be used." Just as Christians ask, what would Jesus do? I hear there are Buddhists in California who asked, what would Buddha recycle? So the kesa is waste material made pure and precious. The patchwork pattern of the robes also comes from Buddhist teachings. When he taught his disciples to arrange their begging clothes laid out in squares and stripes like these fields. So monks and nuns chant that their kesa rubs them in a field of blessing. The volume embodied in the kesa are very moving to me. They speak to the heart of what I have always tried to do. When creating textile at Nuno, just recently we made this kesa inspired altar hanging for a new church in Kyoto. Nothing need go to waste. The real trust here is there is no such thing as scraps. Everything is useful as long as we don't waste our imagination. Thank you very much. Listen to my recycle talk. Sorry about the images. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much for such a inspiring and a beautiful presentation. I'm so sorry about the technical problem for the Reiko and also the audience. So before opening up the question from the audience, I would like to have some question to ask you. First to the Reiko. So your practice and challenge is so beautiful, and I was so impressed with the beauty of your textiles made out of waste, and I think that trial must need a lot of time and the skilled workers to work with, and that reflect on the retail price. That assume. Sorry, it might be the really nasty questions, but on the other hand, why now people rush to the fast fashions? Because they're so cheap. So how do you how can we fill the gap between that cheap wasteful garment and your attentive, elaborate made textile, because of the time of the skilled workers, I think sometimes those textiles become very, very luxury items for those who can afford. So what kind of support, or how can we solve this problem?
It's very difficult to define exactly what is a reasonable price. So Nuno has never ever done any bargain sale since we started. So that is really important to make I think I could say reasonable price or honest price. So this is our very, very simple. So people could understand how much we make profit. And all of Nuno members know how much we made a profit since we started. And we could say, well, we have this much profit, so I'm sorry we are not able to give any discount or like even professional discount. And also we've been produce all the textile in locally. So all of the material and the labor work and production and everything produced in Japan. And people will kind of understand how we try to develop and how much we kind of adding the effort to work together. So that's, I kind of like feel lately. That answer,
Yeah, so maybe, to make people understand why this price is made, maybe people also may need to know the process, how your textiles was made and how many people is engaged, like you showed today, perhaps. And I also have the question to Marr, and I really love your project working with the Palestinian lady. It's really, as they showed, it's really empowered. It's a lady in Palestinian.
The sixth branch. Yes.
Yeah. I have been to Bangladesh 2 years ago, and at that time I visited some garment factories. As you know, Bangladesh, their garment industry is the top kind of income resource for that countries. But as we know, it's a lot of the significant number of the women are engaged in that business. Yes. But as we sometimes reported, and their working condition is pretty tough. So, and I think that's happened not only in Bangladesh. Maybe there's some countries like, maybe Thailand or the other countries in Eastern Europe. The lady might suffer. And basically, the Francesca's presentations, weaving and textile making with the domestic, labor, because they are not they are necessary to be paid.
Yes. Yeah.
So now the women, is working in the textile factory or garment industry, they are worked with very, very low wage.
Yeah.
So you and your center or your colleagues have ever, tried to tackle with this issue?
Is it on? Yeah. I think that's a very complex,
Yeah,
very complex issue. I think in general. I mean, the Woman in Hebron project is more a small collaborative or community, whilst a big manufacturer in Bangladesh obviously has thousands of workers working for them. So in a way, you can't really compare the two practices. One is like a big fashion-orientated product-driven market. The other one is more like a craft market. And we're actually currently trying to sell and promote the work from the Woman of Hebron in London. So that's going to be interesting, and that's why I put that kind of graphic in there with a combination of economic, environmental, and social kind of impact of sustainability. Because in a way, it's really important that people can make a living. It's really important that the living they make has a meaning and is sustainable in terms of well-being. I mean, I think that's something we've learned today from all different decades. Textile designers or textile workers have been empowered, but at the same time also been exhausted by the production methods. And in that sense, there isn't any one answer, I would say. I think it's a very kind of intricate interrelationship between consumer behavior, how they, everybody maybe changes in the way how they produce and buy products. But at the same time, there isn't any, I would say, right or wrong. It's just a good or bad in a way that not everything that is fastly produced is automatically wrong, because there are some positives in there as well. Things can be easily used, they are accessible, rather than something that is really expensive. So in that sense, I think it's something that we are at this moment of time, where we're looking at all these different layers, trying to decipher how we can make them more practical for our work and for the lives of people who are actually working in them. So developing standards for the industry, how manufacturers work under certain conditions, making things more transparent, like where does the price come from? We were just looking at the conference at a company called Philippa K. They put all their producers on the labels. They also have garments for lease. So first of all, communicating why do we pay the price for this and what is behind it, and then hopefully improving many different layers of conditions from workers and also the consumers as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so in this ways, I think there are Reiko's, the new project with Muji. It's very, very interesting because now we can find the Muji shops and everywhere, and they're selling very. It's maybe the part of the fast fashions. Maybe so not expensive, so very simple. So who started that project? Did you start to talking with the Muji to start that project, or what brought to the that project?
Yeah, that was my idea, and the Muji named by Kazuko Koike, who is the woman who started Muji name.
Founder
yes.
Founder of Muji.
And because Muji quality is quite good, and when we actually 3 people went the factory every month, start of Wednesday, full day, 7 till 8, and checking all the boxes, 200 boxes every month. And Muji
in a factory.
In a factory, Muji is the most active membership of the Fuku project. And I went there once and looking at the clothing. And actually, Yoji Yamamoto designed Muji garment 10 years ago. And I found one of them, and I wanted to buy that. I wanted to grab it.
Yeah.
So and then I thought,
Vintage
Muji. Kind of like, why don't we just pick up the beautiful and the good quality of clothes and to do the dye in afterwards, because we have that sort of tradition in Japan. We still have a dyer for kimono, not for the garment. So that was the original idea.
Okay, and
they sold very well.
Oh,
Amazing.
it's a successful.
Amazing. It's priced at 2,600 yen, which means very expensive in Muji standard. But you can buy same shirt in 1,300 yen or 1,500. But they allowed to buy.
Oh, wow.
They are putting the money for all the same price, 2,600.
And how about Marr? Have you ever worked with the like big company like Muji, or it's the garment industries, or?
Well, me personally, I mean, I've got a background in fashion, so I'm coming actually from a high street fashion background, knowing how the fast industry works quite well. But at the moment, I'm personally not working with a big. We were just putting in a big bid, but we're actually working together with different big companies and universities and local makers, and we're hoping to bring those together to actually develop different strategies and promote the mixture between this local kind of ownership and the value of different garments or production.
Okay. But some of your projects is really speculating design. So yes, you don't know when it's going to be really produced and for the retail, or so what kind of support is? I think it's not easy to continue doing conducting the research. So,
yes, I mean, that was specifically Carol Collet's research that we saw, which was about the biolace and things like that. But in a way, it's speculating about future manufacturers. So she was speculating about working not just with the garment industry, but with the farming industry, and actually imagining new partners and creating a new scenario. But I mean, looking at Sputniko's work, I mean, some of it is actually becoming reality right now. So the speculation is already becoming reality. So in that sense, I think that's part of the research, that you're actually going beyond existing current parameters. And some of it might become reality, some of it will never happen. So.
Yeah, so your project also, this makes me the sense of the time, because now, we said the future is tend to think about the 5 years, it's the 15 years, but you will think your, time spans much, the far from, the not 5 or 10 years, maybe 20 years, but actually I think it's a Muji project. When was the Muji founded? Muji가 오픈시마시다가? It's about the 80s.
Open 1980s.
80s. Yeah, I think it's already 30 years something. So, so I'm not sure if, the Muji started that recycle project at the beginning. I'm not sure how people, they appreciate that trial like people do now. So, maybe, so we need the time to think about it, to actually practice for the to building up the sustainable society in the future. So I think it's better to the open the question from the audience. Okay.
Hi, I have a question for Reiko. So you've worked with kind of a big retailer, right? And there's this question regarding apparel retail where what drives kind of the demand for sustainable apparel, whether that be kind of companies driving awareness, educating the consumer, or the consumer actually asking for the products themselves. In your experience, how do you feel is driving kind of sustainable culture as far as apparel goes? Is it the consumers asking for more sustainable products, or is it actually the companies themselves educating the consumers, or is it kind of more specific to Japanese customers being kind of paying more attention to detail in general?
For example, I was talking about EcoCircle, started from Teijin, big company, chemical company. in 2000, because the fossil fuel will be gone at the time, people are saying. And all of the Japanese chemical company, Teijin started polyester 100% chemically recycled, and Torres started nylon chemical recycle. So that means like 60% of the entire textile products made out of oil at the moment. Mm-hmm. So entire world, we can gathering all the polyester or nylon fabric, and then you don't need to use virgin oil. Mm. So we can just use existing material. So all the people have to send the polyester or nylon material to the company, and the company has to return to the plant in Japan. Even like Nike and Patagonia, and they are all member of the this system. We are the most smallest company in the project. Nuno, yeah, Nuno is involved with, and then MoMA museum store decided to sell EcoCircle Nuno origami eco bag since 2004. They are still selling it, and said this bag has to return to the Nuno store. So they have to send the bag by their own money. So, and I think recycle or sustainable situation has to understand, or like a sharing consumer and maker and everyone. So we are not really try to educate people. We have to educate ourselves, and the consumer has to think about themselves. That is, and also the maker. So this is really, and we had a serious problem of the EcoCircle when we got the disease, earthquake in 2011. And Teijin and ourselves, Nuno, decided to send all the material for the suffered area to protect the privacy. And all the fabric can be returned to the plant. Of course, we have to check everything. It's very clear, dust and everything, and then sent back to a plant in Shikoku. And they cleaning, and then they made a new thread out of the used fabric. That was fantastic, because we need 100,000 meter for the Tohoku earthquake. And the Kumamoto one, we sent 20,000 also. Mm-hmm. But in Tohoku, there is a Fukushima area. Mm-hmm. And that was a nightmare, really a nightmare. Yeah, we're not able to send this fabric. Has some...
Yeah, in the at the time of the earthquake hit Japan 2011, so many people have to escape from their city or town, especially the Fukushima area, because there was a nuclear power plant exploded. So you send your textile to make the partition.
Well, you can't divide it. And well, actually, this project done by Shigeru Ban. And
architect.
Architect. And I'm just supporting the textile part. But that was a really nightmare. And still we are having a problem. We can't burn. We are not able to send to the...
because of radioactivity. Yes. It's polluted by radioactivity. It's that textile part.
So we are still working with the Textile Institute, with the thousands of meters of the textile, EcoCircle textile.
エコのシステムっていうのがあるのは、日本独特の文化と関係ありますか？
Well, in Japan, we have a very, very deep tradition and also government. So we Japanese can't make, at the moment, a textile from, well, it's like, textile industry have to recycle textile. And automobile industry has to recycle automobile items. So we have to do in our own industry. So this is new law, 2002. The government decided. So we are not able to make another product. So that helps a lot also, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty frustrating. I would like to keep conversations, but also I have to keep the time because we already 30 minutes over. So, okay. Yeah, so the one last question. Or two. Okay, so there. Okay, yes, maybe the gentleman in the green shirts.
Reiko-san, knowing that the Japanese industries sometimes find it difficult to change, how did you persuade them to use fabrics and silk ends that they might not possibly have used before?
I think Japan is not. What do you think, Sputnik? I think Japanese are quite. Well, if you are putting すごい一生懸命伝えると伝わりますよね。
If you have
そう思い
really
ません?
passion to persuade them, it's really.
I think if you're very passionate and if you're almost like an alien in the society, then people really respect aliens there. So you just have to do that final push. And once you become an alien, you're kind of free to do a lot of things. That's what I felt.
Yeah, I'm the Aryan. Japanese
You're an
part of
alien.
Aryan. You are the English Aryan.
We're the Japanese female alien shaking things up in Japan.
Yeah. Okay, and the lady? Is it black shirts?
So I invest in the technology area, and I'm actually curious. Well, I have two questions. First of all, Reiko-san, what are you wearing? Is that from Nuno?
Today I'm layering. So this is silk together with the washi paper here. And this one is the worsted with the just the pattern. I kind of uses the alkali to make the pattern. So alkali dissolves the protein. So I just spray with the alkali. So and this one is the high, tight woven textile from Fukui, and they made a very, very tight weaving. So it's waterproofed. Don't put any cognac gel or. And this one is the one of obi maker made a scarf. So used to be a obi sash weaving. So we just wear obi like this.
So,
Thank you.
So my main question, though, is so I see a lot of the trend coming out with wearables, and much of the wearables are using synthetic materials and also nanomaterials and so forth. And that, even though I think a lot of people in the Western sector are looking at sustainability, that's just an area that's going to move ahead, right? Especially since we're so enamored with electronics and so on. So you, both of you, have done so much research in this area of materials. I wonder if you can comment on that and comment on advanced materials and how that meshes with all the sustainability that you're looking at and different methodologies.
I think, yeah, definitely. It's an area, again, it's bringing together scientists and fashion designers and textile designers to create new wearables. And I think in terms of sustainability, again, it's a question of, first of all, it's enhancing lives. I mean, if it enhances some performance, for example, or I don't know, measuring heartbeat or something like that could be great. So in that sense, I think that's a really positive development. In terms of the material recycling, upcycling, the main thing is how to sort different materials after the use of the material. It's called fibertronics. So if you can actually, there's some technology recently developed that they can actually, when you recycle something, automatically extract, let's say, polyester from aluminium in the recycling plant. If you can do that, then it's actually not so much a bigger problem anymore. So once we've solved that step, whether you have a mixed technology with wearables, I think that's great. That's really exciting, as long as it can then be reutilized and recycled or upcycled or recustomized.
Let me translate and see. It's quite difficult question to answer now, but in terms of wearable things, now we already have some wearable device like the iWatch or something like that. But she thinks it's more wearable, becoming more like closer to skin itself. As for instance,
携帯を動かすために手袋に携帯に反応できるような織物をここに編み物を入れてるんですけど、糸をね。
for
そんな
instance,
必要なくなると思いますね。
now there is a special glove for using the smartphone, and because we need to touch, and with use normal glove, a smartphone cannot react. So there is some special textile used for the finger. But those kind of things maybe it's unnecessary because a device itself be the part of the garment. So thank you very much, Ang and Reiko, and
ありがとうございました。
audience. Very interesting questions.
Thank you very much.